Imagine waking up to a world where every trace of your identity has been systematically erased. On a quiet morning in December 1948, a couple strolling along Somerton Beach made a discovery that would baffle investigators for over 7 decades. Propped against a seawall lay a sharply dressed man. He looked as though he had simply fallen asleep while gazing out at the ocean waves. But the reality was far more sinister. He would never wake up. The scene was entirely peaceful, yet deeply disturbing to investigators. When authorities arrived, they found absolutely no signs of a struggle. The sand around him was completely undisturbed. In his pockets, police found a half-empty pack of gum, an unused train ticket, a bus ticket, and some cigarettes. But there was a glaring absence. There was no wallet, no cash, and no identification of any kind. The man had effectively become a ghost in plain sight. Authorities assumed an autopsy would quickly solve the puzzle. Instead, it only deepened the enigma. The medical examiner concluded that the man's heart had suddenly stopped, but there were no obvious external reasons why. His internal organs showed extreme congestion, highly suggestive of an undetectable substance. Yet, extensive toxicology reports came back completely clean. Whatever ended this man's life was either unknown to science at the time, or had metabolized perfectly without leaving a single trace behind. The police turned their attention back to his belongings, hoping the clothing would reveal his origins. He was wearing a high-quality tailored suit, unusual for a casual day at the beach. But when investigators checked the garments for manufacturer labels, they were stunned. Every single tag on every single piece of clothing had been carefully and deliberately cut away. It was a calculated effort. Someone had gone to great lengths to ensure this man remained nameless. Weeks turned into months, and the trail went ice-cold. But then, a sharp-eyed investigator made a startling discovery. Deep inside a hidden pocket in the dead man's trousers, sewn tightly into the lining, was a tiny rolled-up scrap of paper. It looked like it had been torn from the pages of a book. On this tiny piece of paper were just 2 words, printed in an elaborate, foreign font. The words were, Tamam Shud. Translators were immediately brought in. They revealed that Tamam Shud is a Persian phrase, meaning ended or finished. It is the final phrase printed at the very end of a famous 12th century book of poetry called the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. The poems focus heavily on themes of mortality, the passage of time, and leaving this world without regret. Police now knew what the paper was, but they desperately needed to find the exact book it was torn from. A nationwide public appeal was launched. Against all odds, a local man came forward. He told police that he had found a rare copy of the Rubaiyat tossed into the back seat of his unlocked car, parked near the beach, around the time the body was discovered. Investigators eagerly turned to the final page of the poetry book. Just as they suspected, the last words had been cleanly torn out. It was a perfect, undeniable match. But the book contained a secret far darker than poetry. On the inside back cover, faintly written in pencil, investigators found a series of random, jumbled letters. It was a code. 5 lines of seemingly nonsensical text, with the second line crossed out. Intelligence agencies and cryptographers across the globe were brought in to crack the cipher, yet, the sequence defied all logic. To this day, the code remains one of the world's most famous unbroken ciphers. Alongside the encrypted message, police found something else written in the back of the book, an unlisted telephone number. They traced it to a young nurse who lived just a short walk from where the body was found. Her name was Jo Thompson, though police referred to her in the press as Jestin to protect her identity. She firmly denied knowing the dead man, but her reaction during the police interview told a very different story. Because the body was beginning to deteriorate, police had a plaster cast made of the man's head and shoulders. When they presented this lifelike bust to the nurse, witnesses reported that she appeared completely terrified. She looked as though she was about to faint and refused to look at the face again. Despite her physical reaction, she maintained her silence. Did she know him? Was she protecting someone? Or was she genuinely afraid for her own life? Just when the investigation seemed completely stalled, another bizarre clue emerged. Staff at the Adelaide railway station discovered a brown suitcase that had been checked into the cloakroom the day before the man was found on the beach. Like his clothing, the suitcase's label had been removed. Inside, investigators found a strangely specific collection of items. There were clothes, a shaving kit, an electrician's screwdriver, and a specialized stenciling brush typically used by merchant officers. The most crucial piece of evidence inside the suitcase was a specific type of orange thread. It was an exact match to the thread used to repair a hole in the dead man's trousers. This confirmed the suitcase was his. But once again, all identification marks on the clothing inside had been methodically cut away. Only 3 items retained a name: Keane. Police launched an international search for a missing man named Keane, but found absolutely nothing. Let's look at the historical context. It was 1948. The Cold War was just beginning. Australia was secretly testing highly classified long-range missiles at a facility not far from Adelaide. Furthermore, the nurse, Jo Thompson, had a history of handing out copies of the Rubaiyat to men serving in military intelligence. The pieces of the puzzle began to form a chilling picture. Was the Somerton Man an international spy who had been permanently silenced? With no concrete answers, the unidentified man was finally laid to rest in a local cemetery. His tombstone simply read, "Here lies the unknown man who was found at Somerton Beach." For decades, the case gathered dust. The unknown man became a local legend, a ghost story whispered on the beach. Numerous individuals came forward claiming to be his relatives, but every single lead evaporated. The truth seemed permanently buried under 6 feet of Australian soil. Fast forward to the 21st century. Technology had advanced beyond the wildest dreams of the original investigators. A dedicated researcher, Professor Derek Abbott, spent years petitioning the government to exhume the body. He believed that modern DNA analysis could finally unlock the mystery. After relentless campaigning, permission was finally granted. Scientists carefully extracted DNA from hairs preserved in the plaster death mask made over 70 years ago. The ultimate search for his identity had begun. The scientific team used a technique called genetic genealogy. This is the exact same method used to catch the Golden State Killer. By uploading the Somerton Man's DNA profile to public genealogy databases, they began building an incredibly complex family tree. They traced distant cousins, working backward through centuries of records, birth certificates, and marriage licenses. Slowly, they narrowed down a list of 4,000 potential candidates to just a handful of individuals. In 2022, 74 years after the body was found on the beach, the impossible happened. Professor Abbott announced a name. The Somerton Man was Carl Webb. He was an electrical engineer and instrument maker born in Melbourne in 1905. Webb was the youngest of 6 siblings. He had no recorded criminal history, no known ties to espionage, and had simply vanished from the public record in 1947. The ghost finally had a name, but answering the question of who only deepened the question of why. Digging into Carl Webb's life revealed a troubled man. He had a severe falling out with his wife, who had left him and moved to South Australia. It is highly probable that Webb traveled to Adelaide to track her down. But what happened between his arrival and his final moments on the beach? And why did he have a bizarre code hidden in a book of poetry? Quick flashes of the unsolved clues, the code, the torn paper, the missing tags, the nurse's terrified face. The music reaches an intense, questioning crescendo. The identity is solved, but the true mystery remains completely untouched. Why were the tags cut from his clothes? Who was he meeting? What did the unbroken cipher mean? Some experts believe the code was simply his personal shorthand for tracking horse bets, while others firmly maintain it was an espionage drop gone wrong. And what was his connection to the nurse who almost fainted at the sight of his face? We may never truly know the answers. Carl Webb took the answers to those questions to his grave, leaving behind a legacy as the most baffling mystery in Australian history. A man who desperately tried to erase his own existence, only to become immortalized by his own death. What do you think the code meant? Was he a heartbroken husband or a Cold War casualty? Drop your theories in the comments below. And if you love deep dives into true mysteries, hit that subscribe button.